Hello, Garrett. Thanks very much for joining me again on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we had a, we,
It was an easy invitation to accept.
yeah, we had a great conversation last time, and I think a lot of people got a lot from it, provoked a lot of thought. What's been happening in your world, Garrett? What's been developing in terms of your own business?
Um, Pretty much the same stuff. I mean, in my world, we did a renovation on our house, and I moved my office to the space over our garage. So that's been exciting.
Yeah.
And yeah, building a putting green, and it'll be a par five for the grandchildren that'll eventually morph into a par three as they grow. But we're doing that, so that's exciting.
Fantastic.
And yeah, I'm having some great conversations. My book was released, and my latest book, and that's been the feedback on that's been good. So all's well.
Is golf still a part of your life? Do you still play? A couple of your kids you said played last time we spoke.
Yeah, I don't. I last summer, I guess after we spoke, um, in June, one of my sons got married, and the wedding it was in Rhode Island, and we on a terrific old Donald Ross golf course named Secundit, and right on the water. Not crazy long, but just special trolleys or pull carts. And I played Friday before the wedding with my three best friends, two that I grew up with and played hockey with, and the third who I played competitive amateur golf with. And we had a fantastic time. And then this day of the wedding, I played with my father of the bride and my two sons. And again, we had a fantastic time. And it kind of sparked not necessarily a love for golf, although I obviously love the sport, but more, just being out there with people that I love and are special to me. So last summer, I played a bit with all those same people. This summer, not quite as much, but, everybody's off doing their thing, but still a handful of times. And I hit balls here at home. I have enough room to hit some long shots. So I I pretty much do that every day after I'm done
Really?
here in the yeah.
Right. Yeah. Still catching a few at the middle, I would imagine.
Yeah, but not bad, not bad.
Garrett, one of the things I wanted to explore with you today was that what I see more and more these days is people constantly thirsting for the next fix, the next technique, whether that be a technical fix or a mental game fix. And if you look back at most things that where we develop skills, people served an apprenticeship, that you went through a period of learning, you perhaps studied with somebody that maybe was a mentor or a guide for you to develop your skills. What's your thoughts on that? On the amount of tips that people feel they need, and the requirement for the next fix, and the kind of inability to stay on track with almost anything.
I think it's part of buying into the concept that we are human. So I'm even tempted to say it's part of being human, but I'm not so sure that's who we are at our core, as you know, and as we've discussed. So I think once you buy into the concept that I am in truth, a separate entity, a human being, the nature of that entity, as we are taught, is limited, limited shelf life, lacking. We're not complete. We have things to learn or gain. Even down to in some religious cases, like you're a sinner. So by the very nature of that conditioning, we will then seek remedies, repeatedly seek remedies, and what will happen is fixes, as you called it. And what will happen is if we find a remedy or a fix that makes sense to us, or we like, or we even like the person who's providing the fix, we will temporarily stop seeking. And in that cessation of seeking, we will find peace. Of course, because we make the mistake of attributing the peace to the method, to the fix, or to the person attributing the fix, giving the fix, providing the fix, we then are crediting the outside agent. And when insecurity ramps up again, as it will always do, based on the conditioning I just described, we then look at the fix and say, or the agent of the fix and say, "Wow, it's not working anymore," or I need a new one.
Mm.
I need a new fix. I need a new guru, and we're off to the races once again, and the same cycle continues. And this is sadly the cycle for athletes, the cycle for all people. And it's usually the cycle right up until so-called death. And then there's a letting go of all that. Usually a looking back and wondering, "Wh- why did I waste all that time seeking the fix? I'm good. Like I'm about to die and I'm good. Now what's that?" So I think, again, I think that the, uh, the cycle you described is basically the result of being conditioned to be a limited, lacking, separate entity. Sorry, like other computers kicking on. I don't want that. So, okay. So yeah, I hope that makes some sense and answers the question.
So within that framework, what do you believe that the role of coaching is, and the pursuit of excellence, or the pursuit of mastery? How does that fit in within that framework of a kind of non-dual understanding?
Well, I think there's two questions there. One, what's the role of the coach? And then, so that I'll give you my opinion on. And then, but the second part about the pursuit of excellence, I'm not so sure that's the appropriate pursuit.
Okay.
So let's take that one first. So I don't I think that the pursuit of excellence um, is the source. Excellence being an object. Let's say excellent or success or a trophy or a good swing, perfect marriage, money, whatever it may be, whatever object. And an object, what I mean by an object is anything that um, has a beginning and an end, or is transient, or is can be known. So excellence would be an object. So even the pursuit of good thoughts or something. So as thoughts are an object, or feelings. So I think it's the pursuit of objects, in this case, excellence being one, that gives rise to suffering in the first place. Because anytime we seek something outside of ourselves, so to speak, that is the seek or resist something outside of it. That is the very source of our confusion, of our tension, um, of our suffering. So I like to spin that around. If someone was to come here and visit me or talk with me, I like to spin that around, knowing we're kind of programmed to seek objects like excellence or good thoughts or whatever. I like to spin that around and say, rather than do that, why don't we just give a try to uh, pursue the knowing of who we are at our core? Ultimately, the knowing of who we are is not seeking. I mean, where would we go to know who we are? But that's okay. The ego loves to seek, so we'll kind of play with it. We'll beat it at its own game, so to speak, and we'll spin that around. Let's 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 find out who this I is, who this self truly is. In that exploration, you ultimately surrender. You surrender. You find peace. You find salvation, so to speak, love, happiness, which will then manifest itself in very interesting ways in the world as passion, as purpose.
Mm.
Um, So without even trying to be number one, so to speak, we kind of let life will then just kind of play out as it will. Now, as to the question about the coach and the role, I see the coach's role just to be the guide or the friend who explores inward with you. That's what I think my role is. That's what I actually think any coach is. It could be a swing coach, it could be a life coach, it could be any kind of coach or friend or mentor. I think in truth, uh, the mentors that I've had clearly have done that for me. Um, the relationships that I value, my friends, my wife, even my children are that to me. So uh, I think if we could spin this role a little bit, the coach, as opposed to someone who helps you chase a carrot, which in my experience is a never-ending chase.
Mm.
Those who, as I know that we've discussed this, those I've had players call me after their biggest victories, and they've been suffering the most. The next day, maybe not in the immediate aftermath, even as the next day, the next morning, even that night, they're suffering the most. So that's because that chase of the carrot, the object, will always let us down. There's no fulfillment in that. And I'm not criticizing wanting to win a championship by any means, but I like it to be more of an effect, the result of inward exploration, not the end goal. Because if that is the case, if your goal is to win the Open Championship, that's the true goal. When you get there, it will never bring you what you have built it up to bring you. And you will always wonder, what did I just do? Like, what have I just done? And I think we all have experiences in our own lives in that respect. When we've gotten a new car, we've gotten the good grade in school, or we've the pretty girl, or um, whatever it may be. It never brings us what the world says it will bring us.
Just playing devil's advocate on this though, Garrett, because I'm sure a lot of people listening would probably be thinking in this direction. Would there not be, from what you're saying, would there not be a danger of slipping into some kind of nihilism of well, what the hell is the point of anything? If i- if the sort of desire to improve your golf or your golf swing or your scores, I'm just hope that question makes some sense. And I know where ultimately you would want people to go, but that's not an easy journey to instantly get. And would could somebody not fall into the trap, literally thinking, "What is the point of anything?"
I, I think maybe at the outset, I think it's an incredibly fair and just question. I no issue with it at all. But in my experience, it's precisely the opposite.
Mm.
Once we get to understand the nature of our being, so to speak, and uh, one of the fallouts from that would be the recognition that all things share our being. We are one. Everyone's heard that. Then it actually enhances our level of appreciation and love for all things. It doesn't go the opposite way. And it not only enhances it, it allows us to um, treat them in a more respectful slash loving way. In order to treat the body, for example, in a pure manner, a healthy manner, so to speak, we would have to understand that what the body truly is. It's just a manifestation of consciousness, and it or slash love. And then as a net result, we would then treat the body with love. This is why diets and all the material advice doesn't have any staying power. No matter what, there's no way it can have staying power. What would have staying power is the knowing of self, capital S, knowing that we are love, we are nature, we are, you could even say God. Um, and then as a net result of that, as I said, we would then treat the body in kind automatically. So, I have clients, friends, and even myself. Like sometimes people say to me, "Well, why don't you just live a little? Why don't you just go relax, have a drink, have some alcohol, have whatever, smoke a cigar or whatever, eat some junk or whatever, processed food." And my answer is, this is living. Like that's not even on the table in any way, shape, or form. And I haven't like it's not discipline. There's no discipline in this.
Mm.
There's no, and by the way, I still have miles to go. I can still clean up some areas of my
Yeah.
life. Look, the journey is endless, but for the most part, it's not discipline that allows me to take care of myself. What it looks like I'm taking care of myself. It's really just I can only attribute it to my understanding of who I am. I cannot attribute it to discipline because it's not, I didn't try.
Yeah, try to stay on a diet or anything like.
I don't try. I truly don't, not even a little. It's just yeah, it's just a natural fallout of the knowing of who I truly am.
So pursuing that with health then, would you say that a lot of the disease that we see in the world is at the heart of it a disconnection from knowing yourself, that true self?
Well, we will, I know you're just using some analogy. We can never be disconnected, but I know you know that. But I'm just saying, yes, it is the veiling. It is the veiling of self.
Mm.
Ugh, it can work any other way. So I'm not saying everyone has to agree with me or everyone should believe me. In my experience, we have a glut of advice,
Yeah,
performance advice, diet advice, self-help advice, psychological advice, how to raise your kids advice, what to eat advice, on and on and on. And I think it's just, it's all well and good. And there's some good advice, so to speak, some data, let's say,
practicals. Yeah, yeah,
right? Until you truly know who you are at your core, the idea to not eat processed food.
mm,
And here in America, I mean, we're just rife with processed food. Everything's
yeah,
processed food. The um, that will not be logical until you realize you are not processed yourself.
mm,
I had a discussion. I'm lucky enough to live on a fairly big property here, but one of my one of the edges of the property borders a neighbor, although his house is quite far away. And as I told you, I hit balls here, and I was hitting balls, which in this spot where I hit balls,
mm,
it's relatively close to that property line.
right,
And this last week, and a beautiful day, beautiful Sunday. And I noticed on a Sunday, I noticed like a weird smell.
right.
I went out to the gate, went out, walked around, and I noticed there was a landscaper spraying the lawn.
Mm.
And it's like, oh my God, I'm I'm breathing in chemical.
Pesticides. Yeah,
Life to say, whatever it may be, something that's just terrible. I mean,
mm,
I'm right there and I could smell it with ice. I could feel it.
mm,
So I stopped hitting balls and I went inside, or I went, hung out with my wife somewhere else. And the next day I called my neighbor, who's a generally lovely guy.
mm,
And I said, Mike, here's my experience. Like, what do we, this isn't good.
mm.
I mean, I don't,
What are
it's
we
real.
doing?
Like, and he couldn't hear me. He could not hear me.
Yeah,
He kept making a case for how good his property looked,
mm,
and he kept making a case for how healthy the tall trees between our properties look, and how this company just comes whenever they notice this doesn't look good, they take care of it. And I'm thinking, wait, Mike. I said to him, Mike, does it make sense to you to spray nature with industrially manufactured toxic chemicals? Is that good for the long-term benefit of nature? Like, how could that? He didn't get it.
right.
Like, he literally didn't get it. And I'm fighting my own anger at this point. Like, I'm
Mm,
like, "Just kill this guy. This is insane," you know? And I let it be, obviously, and okay, went about my work day, and I decided when I see him,
mm,
I'm gonna see him.
yeah.
Well, he was right over here. I'm gonna have a discussion. And he beat me to the punch. He actually gave me the number of his landscaper.
Mm,
And I had a very amazingly awesome discussion with the landscaper. And I think I made some headway.
mm,
I just caught him at the right time. Anyway, the point of the story is this is a lovely guy, my
yeah.
neighbor, a
Yeah.
smart guy, successful guy in the worldly terms, no question. His wife's lovely also. And it wasn't, no matter what I said, he didn't get it. He couldn't see it.
Mm,
And not until he understands that he is it, he is nature, or he gets rid of
part
his
of nature.
he is it.
Mm,
Well, he stopped poisoning nature slash himself, because he absolutely is poisoning
mm,
his and his kids. They're out there running around on this grass.
mm,
That's not good. Because, you know, 'cause they don't want to get fleas and ticks. They're
mm,
walking concussion.
mm,
So to me, it's again, I'm not claiming I know more than him. I'm just claiming that my appreciation for nature comes, I can only attribute it to a knowing of self, because I didn't try, I didn't study, I didn't try to feel this way out taking care of nature and taking care of myself or my
mm.
loved one or the world.
Just pursuing that then, in terms of, you talked about pesticides with nature, Garrett, there, and spraying crops. Metaphorically, with the amount of prescriptions that we have and the drugs that are out there, are we metaphorically doing exactly the same thing with Western medicine?
100%. 100%. I wouldn't take a drug. I wouldn't take a drug under any circumstances. I mean, well, I wouldn't take a pop a pill under any circumstances. I would say if I got into an accident and I got rushed into the hospital and they needed to operate on my leg or something, then you know, one of my sons is actually a surgeon.
Is it
So,
right?
so, um, but if, but I would not take a drug for a physical condition. I'm not suggesting people don't take, I'm not saying that. I'm only saying it's just not logical to me. I
Mm,
don't see how a chemical can make us healthier. I
mm,
don't, I'm tempted to say maybe in the short term, but I still have a hard time saying it. So I don't think I would do it.
mm,
I'm almost positive I haven't taken a drug in 25 years.
mm, mm. How then, I know we touched on this a little bit before, but I want to revisit again. How then would people, because these are challenging conversations, I think, aren't they? And we're going into some territory that a lot of people would probably feel a little bit with discomfort with and uneasy with, because it really is shaking the roots of the world in many ways. How would you say, or what would your thoughts be on people beginning this exploration of self? What would be some entry points to that?
Well, I think whether it's today or this morning or when we were 6 years old, I think everyone listening to this, all of us have had the experience of wondering, who am I? Or what is life? Or
What the
is
hell is
this,
this all about?
what's this all about? I think everyone is, you're just, you know, you're proving the point because you've obviously had it. I think I've never had it spoken with someone who hasn't had some, you could describe it as some ethereal pull or vibe or whatever. And like it was for me when I felt that way as a young man, I was almost ashamed of it. I was embarrassed by it. I kept it to myself. I thought father would think it was weak and not, you know, manly enough, and not what's this going to do for you in life. You got to make it, as athlete, as a man, whatever. Um, so what I would suggest is we sit still, so to speak. I don't mean like you can walk and do it.
Not
I mean,
much.
and really explore that pull, explore that sensation. What is that all about? What is that? Where is that taking us? Um, what does it mean? And basically, I would describe it as the true self trying to hold on, trying to not let the conditioning of society smother it. So trying to wipe away. It's a little inkling that's telling you, like, come on, stay with me here, stay with me here. And because in my case, I was embarrassed to sit with that or explore that. I got, and I think perhaps you're the same, and many of the listeners will be the same. We allowed the conditioning, the cultural conditioning, society to kind of tell us what we should seek and
Mm.
what will make us feel better and who we should be, and um, follow this rule or that. And in turning away from that inkling and towards the world of objects and seeking in that object, seeking identity and well-being in that world, we start to suffer.
Mm.
But because we don't know why we're suffering, and we're suffering because we're smothering the true self, obviously, we then we're also taught that we can cure our suffering in the same seeking that's actually giving rise to it.
Mm. Mm.
So this is that wild goose chase we were talking about before. And that is why many of us, or virtually all of us, go through that cycle, that apparent cycle of pleasure and pain, because we think we found the thing. I mentioned this before, I'll say it again. We think we found the thing. We stop seeking because we have found the thing. And in this, when we stop seeking, we return home. The true self cannot seek. There's nowhere for it to go, as I said. So then we have the material thing. We think that that's the thing. We stop seeking. We feel better. Eventually it ramps up again. We seek the next thing or a better version of the first thing, and on and on. And this is the life experience. But it doesn't have to be that way. It truly doesn't. Um, and uh, eh, I don't think we have to wait till we're old
Mm.
and can't function anymore, so to speak, to experience what it's like to know who we are. Now, from there, by the way, then life, the net result of the wiping away of the cultural conditioning is inspiration.
Mm.
As we kind of uh, turn away the ideas and the inspirations of others in the world and come back home, our own insights, inspirations, ideas, passion, and purpose starts to percolate. In my experience, the most genuine people, the most passionate people, even those with most stamina, you might say, and also those who appreciate nature, um, uh, and love others. Those are the ones who have have uh, explored the nature of who am I, the fundamental question. I encourage in the sporting world. I think it's not never more evident. I think it's very evident because in sport, like in any art, you really have the opportunity to express
Yeah.
who you are on the field of play, so to speak.
Mm.
And ultimately, that's what we don't let athletes, golfers, to seek who they are in the game. We want them to express who they are through the game. And that's a massive shift, massive shift. And we all can relate to players who are expressing themselves fully, even if it's it seems like they miss a putt or whatever, they get angry, but there's a genuineness to it.
Mm.
Doesn't seem put on or scripted, and we can relate to that. Um, and I actually, I know we talked about this last time. I don't think there's a better vehicle to express the self than golf. It's absolutely the most glorious vehicle for that. And this is why, even at 62, I like to sit here at the end of the day and launch 5 irons. I just love it.
Mm.
And it's because I'm trying to win a golf tournament anymore. It's simply because I am expressing myself through that activity fully. And I encourage golfers, like everyone, to really um, try that out, because it is the key to consistent play, and it is the key to getting the most out of the experience.
But isn't what you're just talking about there, isn't that actually, again, paradoxically, at the root of pretty much all of the problems in terms of performance, in the sense that people believe their value as a human being is dependent on the number on a scorecard, or whether they beat an opponent, or whatever it is. And it's that sense of personal value hinging on the result of a golf tournament or a shot that actually creates the roadblocks to actually stop that expression of capability.
No question, no question that that is dead on. What we don't want is, however, what we don't want is two things. We don't want to minimize. Um, we don't want to minimize or pretend that, in this case, winning a golf tournament, importance probably the wrong word, but we don't want to minimize that. We don't want to. We don't want to uh, because because well, I don't even know the why. Actually, I just think it's a mistake to minimize anything. I just don't want to minimize that. Um, however, it's linking our well-being to that. That it's not wanting to win. It's linking our well-being to the outcome, to an object. Like I said
Mm,
before,
mm,
outcome is not any object. Linking our well-being or our identity or okayness to an object, again, is the very source of suffering. So
mm,
that wouldn't be logical.
mm.
And you have a we all have this built-in radar detector when we start to do that. Insecurity will manifest itself. It will rise the minute we start to connect, or link who we are to who we are not. To the minute we start to connect our ability to be okay, our completeness, our wholeness to an object, in this case, winning a championship, insecurity is going to rise. But because, back to our conditioning, we are conditioned to believe that insecurity is a bad thing, you then think we want to win more golf tournaments to defeat it. Like, we have to not have insecurity and be confident or something like that, which makes no sense at all, to in order to win the golf tournament, when it's the insecurity that is arising to remind us to be who we are. Stop seeking. You are not that object. Your identity became that object. So the insecurity would rise as a warning shot, so to speak. But because we don't know that, we keep seeking in the object, and it keeps rising,
Mm.
only because that's how powerful the true self is. It's trying to tell you, cut it out. And once you kind of get attuned that this insecurity is arising as a warning, an instinctive warning, it means you're working perfectly well,
Mm.
actually.
Mm.
Without it, we're in trouble, because we wouldn't have the warning. Once you get wind of that, then it's very easy to stop seeking. I think I used this analogy in our last discussion. If this character named Clark Kent starts to seek his okayness is what in whether Lois Lane says yes to a date tonight. Insecurity is going to rise, but it's not a rising telling him you got to keep chasing Lois and then it'll go away. It's a rising to remind him that he's Superman.
Mm,
So that's why it's there. And
mm,
once Superman, he's always Superman, realizes, oh my God, I'm just dressed this way. I'm not really Clark Kent on me.
mm.
Then Lois Lane is attracted to him. He doesn't have to face Lois. The
Yeah,
championship will come.
yeah.
So we've got the formula a little backwards. And in performance work, in mental coaching and in the world of sports psychology, psychology in general, I think there's a complete misunderstanding of what insecurity is and what it's trying to tell us.
It's such an interesting area to look at this. I was watching a program recently, Garrett, and it was about Roger Federer, and within that program there was Nadal and Djokovic and Andy Murray, and it was clear that even though these guys had been great rivals with each other throughout their careers, I think it was coming towards the end of Federer's career, and all of them are coming towards the end now. There was just this clearly at the end of it, there was a tremendous love and appreciation of each other that each one had actually enhanced the other and pushed them to express the capabilities. And what I'm getting at is that is there a parallel with that with golf and golf courses, in the sense that a lot of people see the golf course as an enemy and as something to overcome, as opposed to being an assistance in helping you create shots?
I, yeah, I love that analogy. I've never thought of that or heard that before. I think it's a great analogy. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always defined competition as cooperation in disguise.
Mm,
If we were playing at tennis or having, playing a match in golf, we're cooperating with each other in a quest to express ourselves as fully as we can. And I would see right, like it's a terrific analogy. The golf course is the same thing. And I love it. And yes, and what a wonderful thing. I mean, where else would you want to hang out for 4 or 5 hours than at walking a golf course?
mm.
So, uh,
Even if the conditions are tough, like they
oh
were at the
yeah,
weekend at the British Open, you could see some guys there on the Saturday afternoon when the weather turned really nasty. One or two of them were, you could actually see it was tough, it was a brutal afternoon, but one or two of them were really kind of embracing the challenge of that. Justin Rose springs to mind as one, and he was just in there with the conditions. Another guy, I'll remain nameless, was battling against himself and others, and clearly didn't it shouldn't have the weather shouldn't be that bad kind of approach.
and then you hear some players complain about the course setup because the RNA knew of the weather that was coming in, so they should have. I mean, what? Like, but this is um, again, this is let's put it this way. Once you know who you are, once you've considered who you are, these it becomes relatively easy. It's not hard. I remember in my last golf tournament ever, I just thought of this. It was in 2003, a long time ago. And I had at my club, my former club, I was lucky enough to have two other really good players. I was the younger guy. I joined this club when I was like 20 years old, and they had been there. And they were both about 10 years older than me. And interestingly, I just thought of this too. They welcomed me in. They didn't say, "Oh, this is a younger, good player. We got to keep him out because we want to be the best." They welcomed me in, and I looked up to both of them, still do. And anyway, we were playing in the club championship that year. Just happened to be a 72 hole stroke play. I had won it a couple of years prior. They wanted to, I don't know, they wanted to make it stroke play. So we made a stroke play, and my friend was winning going into the last round, and I caught him, and it was tied. And so went to a sudden death playoff, and he made birdie on the third hole to win. And I didn't like that. I don't want anybody taking that. This is a club tournament, but still, whatever. It wasn't like one of these things where there's one good player. There was legit three legit players there that had played in USGA events and British amateurs, and we all were good, and it was fun. Anyway, the next day was the qualifying for the US Mid Amateur. The next day, I remember my wife was with me. We were holding hands, and we walked back in from the third green, and I felt like it was just the two of us. No one else cared. It was just two of us against the world kind of thing in that moment. Like everybody's congratulating my buddy Jay. It's great. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we'll just we were holding hands. We walked in. And then it started to rain. And I knew the forecast for the next day was terrible.
Right.
Qualifying for the mid amateur. And it had started to rain that Sunday afternoon. I said, hey, babe, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna hit some balls. Now I just played 18 holes, caught the guy, lost in the playoffs. I said, I'm gonna practice. What? You're hitting it good. You don't need to practice. Like you're really hitting it good. She was worried that I was going to overdo it. Like my insecurities come flooding in here because I lost. Now I got to get ready for tomorrow. But it wasn't about that. It was about just expressing myself fully, being with myself, alone myself, with the conditions I knew I was going to have to face the next day.
Mm.
And it wasn't about seeking. It was truly about expressing, although to the uninformed, they could think that I was trying to make up for something that I just lost. Although I was like, well, whatever. I don't really remember what I shot. But anyway, I do know what I shot the next day in the rate, 3 under to shoot the medal at the US Mid Amateur qualifying. I do know that.
Mm.
And the funny part about this story, not that it means anything to this conversation, is my friend had an afternoon time and his caddy didn't show up. So I said, let's go. So I had already seen the course and there's no rule against me caddying.
Yeah.
I was already the low guy in the clubhouse. There's no rule against me. And anyway, and he's right in there till the 15th hole and he made like a triple somewhere and missed it by one or two, which would have, but it was just, again, this is just an example of me, us just expressing love, like Federer and Nadal, for example. My friend Jay, I love him. I want him. I don't want to beat him that day. I want him with me
Yeah.
at the tournament. I want him to do well. I did it, and I think others would see that differently. But I took his bag on my shoulder. I knew where the pins were. That we got a pin sheet, but I knew I could help him.
Yeah.
And we had a great time. Unfortunately, I didn't make it. So interesting parallel to the movie you were watching.
So bringing it right back to golf and golf shots, Garrett, I think if we drill right down to an individual shot that anybody might be hitting anywhere on a golf course, might not be the easiest question, this, but I'll try and frame it the best way I can. If you were going to play an individual shot at golf and you were expressing yourself as opposed to seeking something, what would be the difference, would you say, on an individual golf shot?
Tension free.
Okay.
Yeah. Freedom being the key word. Free.
Right.
Free. It's that simple. When we seek in this material world, in the world of objects, the net result of that is tension.
Yeah.
You cannot seek in, I haven't discussed this, but I'll say it now, in the illusion. You cannot take the illusion to be real and not have tension or that insecurity I just described. So the net result is the true self trying to tell you, intuition trying to tell you, cut it out. So tension, insecurity will rise.
Right.
And when I mean the illusion of the material world, I truly mean the illusion that there is an outside. One of my mentors once said to me, Garrett, the outside world cannot hurt you. The outside world cannot help you because there is no outside. And I immediately perked up as a 30-year-old and said, whoa, more. I need more of that one. Like I knew he was
There's
honest.
something there. Yeah.
So that the idea that there's a world outside of us is not logic. We are not, we would have to be separate entities, and the world would have to, we would have to know for sure that the world can exist without us to to take the illusion as true. So there is an illusion of the outside, but what we're actually experiencing is the inside of consciousness, the inside, you might say, of our own minds, so to speak, inside of God's mind. That's what we are experiencing right now. So the idea that we can seek outside of that isn't logic. And when we fall for that illusion, so to speak, again, tension, insecurity, anxiety, worry, nervousness, they will arise. They will arise. And so the antidote to that, not that it needs an antidote, because the tension is telling us we're falling for the illusion, the matrix, whatever, is any strategy, so to speak, that can pivot us back inward. So just merely telling myself, express yourself, express who you are through this shot, express peace, express passion, love, fluidity, grace through this shot, whatever. That very action has the power to pivot me back home. So I used to, in the first book I wrote called Still Power, I made the mistake of criticizing, well, criticism's not a mistake, but I spoke ill of mental strategies in that book. And my mistake was, it's not the strategies in and of themselves that are unproductive. It's strategies used for materialistic purposes that are
Yes.
incredibly productive. Hadn't caught on to this when I was younger and wrote that book. So I was kind of right that because I noticed in myself and other players that the mental strategies seem to be getting in our way. They seem to not be helping. They seem to be adding to the tumult in our minds, so to speak, not clearing anything. And I think the experience of so many players is like that. I just, they don't know there's not another option. But again, my mistake was, it wasn't the strategies in and of themselves. It was strategies used for personal gain.
Right.
If you whatever we can do to pivot us back inward or back home, so to speak, to stop us from seeking in that world of objects, in the mature world, and back to a knowing of self or an expressing of self, go for it.
Right.
Go for
It's
it.
not it's not the strategy that's the issue. It's
No.
it's the purpose of the strategy that's the issue.
And I had missed that. And I slowly caught on. Silly me. I had missed it. I think one of the reasons actually was, back then I was still trying to make personal gains. So I was blind. I was trying to be something in that world. And that's exactly what I would born.
It's a very honest appraisal, that, because I think there are some people who sort of go in this kind of inside out way, and it's almost like they're trying to prove that the complete opposite of somebody else in the kind of techniques world. Again, perhaps for the wrong reasons. It's almost like the shout so loud about trying to justify that are they justifying it for genuine reasons, or is it they've fallen into that trap themselves?
And I think that was me, a younger me. And I think, and I'm not to make excuses, but again, it's just part of our discussion here. I think that my conditioning, as you know, as a hockey player before I was a golfer, as a college hockey player, ice hockey player. And I think and I always remember myself as a very gentle young boy. my father, who was a pretty gruff guy, grew up and fought his way through life, really. Um, he wanted me to be tough. And this is why I played hockey. He wasn't even a hockey guy. And he thought hockey was the vehicle to kind of toughen me up. So I think I was kind of bred to fight a little bit.
Yeah.
And it looked like as a young athlete that was helping me. But my body tells a much different story today. I have physical injuries that well, they were weighing me down towards the middle of my life. Not as much now, based on what we're talking actually. But um, you know, I think that I was like that. I think I didn't get a hold of it um, until I don't know, maybe it's 12, 15, 10 years ago. I'm not sure, but I started to see, wait a second, you have your little things that you do when insecurity rises. Like you do some things. I'm not talking about coping. Like you have a couple little, like sometimes it's a simple shake of the head, like, dude, come back home here. Like even that simple. And they're incredibly productive. So what are we criticizing here? Let's think about this. I really took a hard look at it and I realized that it's not the strategy. As you said, the purpose of the strategy. Again, so everybody can really understand that. So I think this is vital. Anything we do for personal gain or gratification is going to get in our way. Even a prayer, even praying to a separate God, it's gonna get in our way. Whereas what our actions, our behaviors that help us come back inward, back towards source, to the knowing of self, back home. As I said before, go for it. It's incredibly important. Now, I will warn everyone that the ego is slippery. It's going to try to convince you that your most benevolent actions that just pivot back home, it's going to try to convince you that seeking there is coming here. It's going to try to confuse you. But again, it's very easy to know the difference. When the ego pops up, and the ego is just the residue of I am a separate self.
Mm.
I am I am incomplete.
Mm.
That's it. So when the ego pops up, insecurity, tension, it's worry. It's so clear, and that's your signal, our signal to pivot this way, back to knowing yourself. Who am I? Who am I? To a real spiritual teacher would say, to rest in your own being,
Mm.
as opposed to seeking in the world of objects.
Mm.
Again, I think golf is a terrific vehicle for the resting of your own being. I've found it to be powerful.
And as you said earlier on, that resting in your own being then potentially manifests itself as a passion for golf or music or surgery or accountancy or whatever it may be. You can still interact with the world in a very, very productive way, but it's
Well, sorry, Carl. Sorry.
no, no, okay.
Well, it won't be a passion. I know what you mean, but it will appear to be that, but it'll be passion will arise. It won't be a passion for this. That's back to to
Right.
seeking. It'll simply be passion. And then, as you indicated, we will take the true self, passion being another word, and we will enter back into the world from this perspective of completeness,
Mm.
pure wholeness, consciousness, love,
Mm.
passion. So, as Jesus said, be in the world, not of the world. He was reminding us, you are not of the world. You are consciousness. You are infinite. You are eternal. Passion, purpose, love. Now, from there, be in the world,
Mm.
not as an object, because objects are
Right.
heat missiles. They're just
Right.
seeking. What he was saying, you're not of the world. Know yourself, and then be in the world from that place. From that place, you are truly free. So yes, whether we're playing golf, whether we're performing surgery, whether we're just walking on the beach with a loved one, hanging out with our dog, having this conversation. Yes, if we can be in the world as the true self, then freedom and love will pour out of us.
Mm,
Now, if it's not, that's okay too. That's okay. That's okay. That's why we have these warning signals as I'm talking to warn us against seeking, craving objects.
mm.
So it's protecting us from addiction.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I mean, the books in the 70s that Tim Galway wrote, The Inner Game of Tennis and The Inner Game of Golf, which I think a lot of people went towards all the techniques and things like that. But I think there was a great passage in there. I don't know if it was the tennis book or the golf book. I think it was the golf book where Galway talked about utmost sincerity. And I thought that was a great passage. And it seems to resonate with a lot of what you're talking about here, Garrett. The utmost sincerity is when we stop trying to be something and we just we just rest in the fact that we are.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, that's yeah, I love those books. I did think, and I could have this wrong because as a young person, I read a shitload of books, both of his included. I My memory of his that those books was that he was the first half of both books being absolutely wonderful and with things like you just said, but then it seemed like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like he was suggesting that the knowing of self could be used for material purposes. I kind of got that, and I wouldn't have described it like that 20 years ago or 25 years ago, but I that's my memory now. And I really want to be clear, like the knowing of your own being cannot and should not be used for personal gain. It is absolutely that is the ego grabbing a hold of truth and spinning it. Now I'm not blending him. Like again, I could be wrong about that. And perhaps my ignorance of what of strategies of is kind of filtered into I don't remember.
Mm,
I actually try not to read that many books today. I write more than I read. And I I like to read novels and stuff, but I really want to make that point clear that, well, I'll say it like this. When if a player calls me and says, "Yeah, I want your help," I will always say, what do you want my help in?" You know, and if he or she says, "Well, I'd like to win more, or I'd like to win a major, or I'd like to win the scoring title, or I'd like to make more money," whatever, even if I like to be a better wife or husband, I'll always say, "I can't help you." I'll always say, I just can't help you with that. I can't. And they usually elicits a chuckle, like I just laugh because it always people just laugh when I say that. Like, what do you do then? Like, why did he tell me to call you?
oh, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and I'll say, well, I'm not saying that the teams and the players and the companies I work with haven't done some cool shit in the world,
Yeah.
but that's never been our goal.
Mm,
It's never been our goal. Our goal is always to know thyself,
mm,
because knowing thyself is your greatest gift to the world. It's your only gift.
mm,
Yeah. From there, we'll just let the chips fall where they fall. I really make that point very clear up front because if I don't, I feel I feel fraudulent. I feel like I just
not genuine.
it's just not true. It's not, even if I did have the power to help you win the Open or the US Open or the PGA or Masters or whatever, which I don't. It's it's not our purpose in life. Our purpose in life is to know who we are, and uh, well, that's what I think our purpose. I don't want people just to believe that. That's what I've come to realize that our purpose is the knowing of self. And there is one real cool fallout from that purpose. When I kind of caught wind that that was the purpose, then the trials and tribulations of life made better sense to me.
Yes.
Because if my purpose is the knowing of self, not to win the tournament, but to know thyself, then everything that happens in life is happening, so to speak, to assist me
Yeah.
in the knowing.
In that quest to know yourself.
So I realized, like, wow, all these things that I was trying to overcome in my life were there to assist me in overcoming the belief that I am a limited, lacking, separate entity. So all these trials and tribulations are actually the journey themselves. That is the journey back home. And I'm not making light of misfortune by any means. However, no matter what the misfortune may be, I don't see it arising for any other purpose than to remind us that in spite of the misfortune, we remain whole. Now take that and go play. Now you're free. So I've done my best to write about that and speak to people like you who are interested in this sort of stuff
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. And from there, some movement emerges, and the club meets the ball, and the ball flies up in the air, and there's a wonderful feeling of just hitting golf shots.
It's something. I know, and most of your listeners can appreciate it, which is cool because it is something. I actually said to my wife, I said, I got in the body for a second, like I got kind of carried away in the person. I said, I'm 62. I'm hitting five. Like, and I intentionally hit not 7 or 8 or not wedges. I want to hit the long clubs. No, not 5 iron used to be a mid iron, but now it's a relatively long club, right?
Mhm.
I want to hit I don't want to hit the easy clubs. I want to
Yeah.
go out there. I want to hit 4 or 5 irons, and because if I can start letting those fly, now we're getting somewhere.
Mm.
I made the comment like I'm just wow. She's like, oh, babe, that's great. She's like, "Eh, let's have dinner,
Yeah.
But I was really just describing the experience that you just were talking about.
Yeah. Garrett, thanks ever so much for a truly wonderful conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed that. As we said at the beginning, I didn't have an agenda. I didn't know where it was going to go, but it seemed to meander in some really nice directions. So thanks ever so much for that.
Likewise, buddy. Likewise, I'll be out your way actually in October. I think I'm going to come over to London, do a talk. I don't know where yet, but we're planning. We're in the planning stage.
Okay.
So
And where can people find out about the book that you wrote? You obviously you've written a few books, but the latest book.
yeah, it's called. Hang on, I'll get it on some here. It's this book here, True
True
Self.
Self. Yeah.
Um, they can just best way to get it is just to go to my site. My name, garrettkramer.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, we took over the distribution of it ourselves. I like
Right.
that
Yeah.
better. So that's where you get it. And basically we've just we've discussed what I write about.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Right. Garrett, thanks again.
Thanks, Carl. Good to see you, buddy. Peace.